Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Welcome into episode 30? 29. I'm sorry.
29? I can do this all day. All day, son. 29?
I'm hung up on the excitement. I completely spaced.
Yeah. Episode 29 has to be the Tariq Cohen episode.
Tariq Cohen. Yes.
Honorable mention to Dennis Gentry from your old 85 Bears, but
Dennis Gentry. Wow.
Tariq Cohen, he's one of my favorite Bears.
Was Adrian Peterson also?
Yes, he was. Yeah. The other Adrian Peterson.
Yes, not the elite one.
Well, he played well, but not the elite. Yeah. Not the Hall of Fame Adrian Peterson. But Tariq Cohen is one of my favorite Bears. Sad how his career ended. I heard recently that, at least in his mind, he's prepping to get back on a roster.
Yep, I heard that interview, actually.
For next year.
Yeah.
And if you haven't given it a read, I wish I remembered the publication that he wrote a very nice piece on. Do you know what that was?
I think it might have been the Players Tribune.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Which is actually owned by Minute Media, who also owns Fansided. So I should know these things.
Well, it was a lengthy article,
yes,
but very worth the time of the read, and just kind of a genuine look at a pretty challenging path that Tariq Cohen had to the NFL, and maybe some regrets that he might have. But you know, I don't know. We can't really live life regretting things. So
no. But as you said, he is prepping to try and make a comeback. I don't know if it's that his video game career didn't take off as he expected, but I know he's a big gamer out on Twitch and stuff.
Know that.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
A lot of competition out there, I imagine. You could be all pro NFL and not be nothing on video games.
Would you be willing to bring him back?
No, I mean,
it's a different regime.
I don't think they have any bad feelings against him. I just don't know if what he would produce is what you need.
Right.
So. But one of my favorite Bears, so definitely, this is the Tariq Cohen episode.
Of the House Huddle. I didn't even say House
Yeah,
Huddle.
sorry, we got right into things. This is we're giddy right now. The Bears clinched the number 1 draft pick in a very strange way,
yes,
with Lovie Smith and
a 4th and 12 and a 4th and 20 both converted, and then a 2-point conversion.
See, now I didn't see it. I'm just kind of tracking it on CBS, updating the game tracker.
It. Yeah.
So you'll have to tell me more about the intricate details. But when they went, so Houston had the lead right off the bat, very early in the game, and obviously Bears were tracking this whole thing. We knew the Bears were going to lose to Minnesota. That part was locked in pretty early, and it was punctuated by. Who's playing quarterback now? Yeah. Tim Boyle. Autocorrect Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
But we'll tell that story later. So. Houston was winning early, and it felt like, the Bears could get the number 1 pick.
It did.
And then they started throwing pick sixes and interceptions, and you're like, are they tanking? What's going on?
There were 2 pick sixes in this game, but one by each
team. So Houston was down 7 with 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, admittedly, I was not watching the game. I'm just tracking it. And I said on Twitter, I responded to someone's tweet, and I also made my own, if they score a touchdown, will they go for 2? And I was half joking because I felt like that would give them the plausible deniability of, we tried, we went for it, we did a quadruple reverse and it didn't work. Right. And then they lose, they went for 2, and it ends up winning them the game and losing them the number 1 pick to our beloved Bears.
How dumb was it for the Houston Texans? This is all rumored, but basically to tell Lovie Smith he doesn't have a job next year. You have no incentive to help this team any longer.
Conspiracy theorists say he could have a job next year as the Bears defensive coordinator, and he helped them get the number 1 pick.
I'm fine with bringing him in, linebacker, and he would fit in with this defense, right?
He certainly would. It's very similar style to what he likes to run, but I'm not going down that road. But I'm just happy, for whatever reason, everything fell the way it did.
Yeah.
And honestly, big picture, you and I agree on this. Not every Bears fan does. This season couldn't have gone better from a big picture standpoint.
Fantastic.
You cleared out the roster. You have all the cap space.
Yeah.
You accumulated some picks from trading some veterans, and you land the number one pick, and you discover that Justin Fields is that dude. Unless you don't think that, and then I think you're dumb. Well, anyway, go ahead. I don't want to fill in. Not this early. We're not ranting today.
No, there's no ranting today. But there are already people out there saying the Bears should trade away Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young. We will talk more about that in another episode. We're going to go, I think, into our next episode. There's a lot of episodes to be had from this situation specifically. We knew that even if they were at number 2, there was still a lot of things for us to discuss as we head into the 2023 offseason. But I think in the next one, that's probably going to be a little bit of a focus is like, okay, do they look at a quarterback here?
Okay.
Do they trade Justin Fields instead? You actually sent me something last week while we were talking back and forth about a trade that somebody threw out there. I think it was Pro Football Focus or maybe Bleacher Report, somebody.
I don't remember.
So that could be a scenario we discuss.
Yeah, lots of...
Yeah, there's so many ways that they can go now. Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham, they better hit the ground running.
Wow.
Tomorrow they should be having a press conference for the end of the season, right? Typically,
I think I heard Tuesday, but...
Okay, could be Tuesday. Soon. This week, for sure, it'll be their end of the season press conference. They better, at that point, already know where their off-season scouting is going, where they're training. Like, everything they need to know, they need to know for sure is, are all these coaches coming back? We already know one coach is leaving for college. Their defensive back coach, I'm blanking on his name, Bro, is going to his alma mater, so he won't be here. There's going to be some turnover.
It's funny. I had some issues last week with Jonathan Vilma talking about play Fields all the way to the very end.
On the broadcast again?
He's on the broadcast again, but because the Bears are not a good game,
yeah.
And he's not a good broadcaster.
Right.
But
the C team.
It's kind of funny. What we talked about with him making that dumb comment was they're not necessarily paying attention to the Bears as closely as we are. And it was funny today to see that the national media is just now starting to catch on to like what this off season is lining up for the Bears. The Bears have the most cap room by a mile over other teams, which means they're going to be a huge player in free agency, not just in who they sign and who they don't, but in driving the market. And now you're a huge player in the draft.
So I know that
everything goes through Chicago this offseason.
I know you have the segment just in time, right?
This Justin.
Oh my God.
Justin catching on with our the huddlers.
Just in time was something else that we used to do with the Jackbox game.
Oh yeah.
Inside
Stay
jokes.
With us, Rob.
Sorry, inside jokes. But anyway, so this just in, and you always bring out like some interesting stats and stuff. So I have a little bit of a nugget. It's not qualified as this just.
We could say that you are robbing.
Yes,
Justin.
I am. So you mentioned that they have salary cap above and beyond everyone else in the league. This is, as of right now, without talking any cuts, they're going into it with a little over $120 million. Okay? The Falcons are number 2 on that list with $68 million. The difference between the two of them is more than every other team except for the Falcons, who are second, another team that is third, and the Patriots, who are fourth. Every other team has less than the difference between the Bears and the number 2 salary cap.
And now, insane. But you touched on something. A team might project right now that they have $35 million going into the offseason. There are ways to negotiate contracts, cuts, like you said. So people's numbers are going to fluctuate, go up. You're going to get more. But the Bears can do that too.
Yeah. We already talked about we would get rid of Cody Whitehair. Right?
He's
That's
gone.
9.9.
Mohamed's gone. Lucas Patrick's probably gone. Yeah. In our world, we're going to do another off-season episode. Yeah. Like you said, there's a ton. Yeah. So, hey, huddlers, if that's what we're calling you all.
Yeah, the Hallis Huddlers. I don't know. I think
Hallis Huddlers. Oh, no. We'll go Huddlers. So, Hallis Huddlers, we appreciate you listening and watching the show. You may watch and listen to other podcasts with the Bears. I don't know which ones are going into the off-season, but we're going to do a lot in the offseason. We have a ton to do in the offseason.
I'm hoping the offseason is what sets us apart from some of the other podcasts that are out there because, a lot of times people take hiatuses, but as we've talked about, the NFL is an all year round thing nowadays. I mean, we still have playoffs going on. That goes into the Super Bowl, which now we're into February. The end of February into the beginning of March is already the combine.
Right.
The draft is in April.
And free agency starts around that time.
That's true. Free agency too. It just never ends.
Yeah. So we're going to be busy. So stick with us. There's tons to cover because, as I just said, the offseason goes through Chicago this year. Whether you're talking about free agency, whether you're talking about the draft. Not yet. Not Arlington Heights, although they're setting up to have some pretty exciting football in their inaugural season, whatever that is. Because this offseason for Ryan Poles is huge. I mean, this is his legacy. And that's not to say, okay, having a lot of cap space doesn't mean spend like an idiot.
Correct.
You still got to try to make wise signings.
Although we did see the Jaguars do it, and they did make the playoffs.
Right. And sometimes you overspend in free agency. That's just the truth.
You have to.
And they're going to be able to.
Yes.
Now, but it doesn't mean you're going to hit on everything. But I think they have enough cap space and potentially enough draft capital to be able to take some swings and still have misses and still be okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk more on this, but they have a lot of cap space going into this year. If they're wise about how they do this, they should have good cap space the year after that as well.
Yeah.
And prep themselves in a way that Ryan Pace never did.
Yeah, so the interesting thing will be, does this regime believe in Justin Fields? Because next year's year 3, which is what we've talked about many times with prior quarterbacks, get him some weapons, and hopefully we see this team springboard into, a situation that other teams are in. Currently making the playoffs right now. And then beyond that, is year 4. You give them the 5th-year option. I mean, you still have time, but you also need to leave money on the table for year 5, 6 to give him that contract extension. Because as we know, great quarterbacks get paid.
They don't come cheap.
And I mean, there's always ways to make the money work, but come 2027, you hope that there's a plethora of, a little nest egg sitting there for Justin Fields.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they think he's the guy. I think they think he made great strides and that he has potential. And like you said, this next season is going to be the opportunity for him to show he either is or isn't in their minds. And then that drives the decision from there. So you alluded to something, and I just want to plug it. This has definitely got to be an episode that we do. The 2023 Bears can be like ... all throughout the Hallis Huddle this season. We've made comparisons to various teams.
Yes.
Could they be next year what the Lions are? Granted, they're playing right now and they're eliminated, so they're not going to make the playoffs. But they went from a bottom dweller to a competitive, in the hunt till the last game of the season team. You just mentioned the Jaguars made the playoffs after throwing big time. Nice update. Give us the update in a second. Jaguars make the playoffs with a second-year quarterback.
Yes.
After they threw a lot of money in free agency towards people. So that in that sense, the Bears can maybe be like the Jaguars, where they can be big spenders in free agency. We've made the Tua comparison, we've made the Hurts comparison, and the Josh Allen comparison. Those come with, hey, Tua, have you met this guy Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, right.
Hey, Josh Allen, your second year was up and down. How about, have you met Stephon Diggs?
Yeah.
The Bears have now put themselves in a position to make a big splash, maybe with a trade. Do you go out and get Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins or, I don't know if Jerry Jeudy's in the same realm, but
yeah, not in the same.
Not quite there,
but still another name to throw out there. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Poles. Do you make a trade with the Indianapolis Colts to get their 4th pick for them to move up to number 1, get their quarterback, and then do you get DeForest Buckner? Since Devontae might not be available, and then maybe their 2 second-round picks this year, one next year. Do you see if they'll give up Quentin Nelson?
Interesting.
There's many ways that we can go with
So when we were doing our mock draft, we went from position 4. We traded back twice, and still ended up with Jalen Carter, right? Or
we did.
And he may have
at 9. So I don't know if that's going to happen.
Now here's the thing, though. The Bears very well from 1 could trade back twice and still be in a position to take.
Well, now from 1, you could be in the top 5.
You could trade to 2 to the Texans. Like, hey, thanks for giving us 1. We'll give it back to you at a cost.
Right.
You get their 2, and I don't know what else you get from them. Next year's first or their second, which would be a high second round pick.
You would think.
It'd be the 33rd pick in the draft.
Oh, you mean this year?
This year.
Yeah. Okay.
So you trade and get the second pick. Right. So they go and say, we want Bryce Young. We need Bryce Young. Yeah. But all these teams that still need a quarterback might be in love with one guy and think they need to trade up to 2.
Which, by the way, this does mean Ryan Poles needs to indicate, and maybe they talk to Justin privately, hey, don't listen to what you're going to hear, but we need to let other teams know we're not sold on you. We're interested in a quarterback, and let them fight it out even more.
I see your point, and if there's a private conversation, and I don't know, Fields doesn't seem like the type that would get all up in his feelings, I don't even think that's necessary because there are so many teams that need one that they're driving the market off of each other.
Sure.
And it reminds me of the Bears trading from 3 just to 2 to take Trubisky.
Right.
You traded a bunch to go 1 spot.
But do teams learn from those other teams' mistakes and see, hey, we got Patrick Mahomes at 10th overall. Do we just,
maybe, but
stay?
Put it this way. Do you think the Texans are worried now that, well, I don't know if this is a for sure thing, but that they think Bryce Young is the guy?
It's too soon to know.
It's too soon to know, but a lot of people say that.
Yes.
And maybe they do. So do you think them sitting at 2, they think it's important to get to 1 so that all these other teams, 4 or 5 other teams that want a quarterback, can't get above them?
I think it's definitely more important in this draft than it was for Ryan Pace to do it in the Trubisky draft.
Fair. But I'm saying the Texans have a motive to do this.
Yes. Them, Indianapolis, behind them.
Yeah.
Carolina could be. I mean, Sam Darnold had a good run here at the end.
Today's game.
I didn't see. Is it bad?
Well, keep talking. I got to look it up real quick.
Well, okay, real quick while we're waiting on. Oh, no. Darn it. I was about ready to give you guys an update that the Lions were winning 13-9, but 3:17 left. Green Bay must have just scored. Yeah, in the third quarter. Green Bay must have just scored and must have missed the extra point. Or they probably went for 2. I probably didn't convert.
So, okay, real quick.
Now it's 15-13.
We're covering the whole NFL tonight, guys.
So we want Detroit to win so Seattle gets in because we don't want to see either. Well, Detroit's already eliminated. We don't want to see Green Bay get in.
So, I don't know what happened in this game. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but I know that the Panthers and the Saints both ended the season 7-10. This final game was played in New Orleans. Now, that's important because this is a dome.
Wait, didn't Carolina win?
Carolina won. But listen to Sam Darnold's line.
Okay.
And the reason I point out this game is in New Orleans, it was inside. There's no January weather to be worried about.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold, 5 for 15 for 43 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Oh, wow.
That's the line of the winning quarterback.
Wow. That is awful.
No, that's without, and he ran 6 times for 32 yards.
Yeah,
Pretty bad game for him, but he got the W. But they could be looking at a quarterback.
That's awful.
So, and we even say teams like Detroit.
Seattle, I know that they made the playoffs with Geno Smith. He started out really hot, but definitely came back down to earth in the second half of the season. Are they sold on him? They now have the 5th pick because of their trade with Denver. Everyone's saying that Jared Goff is the guy in Detroit, but maybe that's not the case. I mean, there's definitely some teams here who are going to be interested in moving up. Atlanta, Carolina, Las Vegas now to be in the hunt if they're going to get rid of Derek Carr.
Exactly.
So definitely
a double trade back is a possibility, I would say.
Definitely.
And when we did it, we kind of a little bit joked because we thought about doing a 3rd trade back. We're like, this is getting ridiculous. Nobody would ever do that. Now it's a realistic possibility because remember in our mock draft, we thought we did a nice job and we had a 1st for next year.
Yes.
Bears could get 1, maybe 2 firsts next year with some wheeling and dealing. And so now you have a huge offseason this year in free agency, in the draft, and you're stockpiling stuff for now the following year? Because I'm looking at this team as they're in year 0 of the build. And we want year 1 to be you're in the playoffs, you're in contention.
Right. This was the
But at least
teardown
it's got to
portion.
be.
Now we're at infancy.
Yeah. It's got to at least look a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be work to do even the following offseason, which they can put themselves in pretty good position for. So, should we talk a little more specifics about like positions here and there?
Why don't I talk you through how this Houston game ended?
Okay.
And let's take a
Thank
break.
you. Yes.
And then we'll come back
Okay.
on the other side.
Very good.
So this is how close this game came to not going our way, right? So as you said, there was 3 minutes. I don't remember how many seconds left.
3:33.
Okay. And they were down 7 at that point. When I switched the channel, they were around the 50-yard line, and it was 1 minute and 45 seconds left in the game. Still down by 7, but someone driving 1st and 10. I was excited. That drive went literally nowhere until 4th down. 4th and 12, a 30-yard completion on 4th and 12.
Had the review, right?
Yes, had the review. Review held. Good. I think they got another 1st down before the next set of downs, and then threw what looked like could have been a touchdown in the corner of the end zone. The guy caught it kind of with his feet and then curled it in. I mean, it was close, but not close enough. I mean, It didn't even get a real review. And then it's 4th and 20.
When I saw that on the update, I was thinking it's over.
4th and 20. Just throws up a prayer. I want to say they're from the 30-something. Throws up a prayer. Looks like it's going to get intercepted. Right over his hand. Boom. So now caught by the tight end for a touchdown.
Now we know what Virginia McCaskey wished for her 100th birthday.
Right? So here I'm thinking, you already alluded to the fact, will they go for 2? I'm like, damn right, they probably will. Lovie Smith, what does he have to lose?
But, yeah, I guess.
Right? What does he have to lose? Now, could someone have come in and, stop that? I'm sure, I don't know.
That's so weird, because kicking it isn't saying we want to lose. It's just a more sure thing.
Correct.
What would have been funny had they tied again. These two teams were the ones that had tied.
That's right.
Bears would have lost the tiebreaker.
Yeah. So
they go for 2. What kind of play did they run?
Gosh, it was just a drop back. I can't tell you what all the routes were. Mm-hmm. I kind of just focused on where the ball went.
Yeah.
And it was a tight throw. I mean, I don't know if it was a slant, but just right inside the end zone.
Incredible.
Caught. Couldn't believe they converted.
Well, and then there were still 50 seconds left. So then I was thinking, could the Colts come back and hit a field goal?
They did a decent return, too, on the kick. Okay. So, but yeah, Ellinger did literally.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And at that point, I mean, I was cheering more for that than I was any. I obviously stopped watching the Bears game at one point. So, but
incredible. But now the Bears are primed for as good of a position as you could ever be in going into the offseason.
I mean, with the way that teams fell in the playoff seeding today, outside of maybe what's going on right now, if Green Bay loses, Seattle and Chicago and Miami, the 3 best winners of this week, I would have to think. Miami snuck in because the Bills won. If Green Bay loses, then Seattle sneaks in. I guess I'll never say that Green Bay's a winner, but if they do beat Detroit, they would be the ones that get in. And then Chicago, from going 2nd overall to 1st overall, I mean, it's a win.
Huge.
It's a win.
It's huge. Baltimore lost, and the only thing I thought about there is their pick is going to be slightly better because the Bears don't have their 2nd-round pick, which is now the 32nd pick in the draft. And the reason I keep doing the math, it sounds like I'm doing the math wrong, but Miami was stripped of their 1st-round pick, I believe.
Yeah.
So there's only 31 picks in round 1 this year. So the Bears would have been picking 32.
Yeah.
And this, with the number 1 pick, but now that's going to go to Pittsburgh, sorry, the Claypool.
Chase Claypool. Here's a mini rant. Pittsburgh fans, you do not own a first-round pick. I need you to understand this. You do not own a first-round pick. Yes, you get to take the 32nd overall player in the draft. You have the 33rd pick in the draft. I don't care if you're getting the 32nd player. You have the 33rd pick in the draft. You know what that means? You don't get a fifth-round option. Okay? Fifth-year option. I'm sorry. You don't get a fifth-year option. Okay? It's not a first-round pick. There are things that come with first-round picks that don't apply to second-round picks. Stop saying you have a first-round pick. Stop.
Well, and some benefits the team to have a second-round player versus a first-round player.
Yes, they pay less.
Pay less for them, yeah. These contracts are somewhat slotted in. So. All right, so how about we take a break, and then on the other side of the break, we talk a little bit about some of the guys who may have played their last game with the Bears today?
Yeah. Let's open with the Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah. Tell that little. All right. What is the connection? You're going to have to wonder through the break what the connection is between Tom Brady and Tim Boyle.
All right.
After these messages.
Yeah. Enjoy these ads.
What's up, Palace Huddlers? We are back in our Tariq Cohen episode. We talked about the incredible chain of events that happened this afternoon that led to the Bears actually positioned to be number one in the NFL draft this upcoming year in the 2023 draft. We don't think they'll be picking there. Spoiler alert. We think they'll be trading out, but they do hold the keys, I guess you could say, to the whole NFL draft now.
They are officially on the clock.
They are on the clock. So that's very exciting. We already knew they're going to have a ton of cap space, which is very exciting. So the offseason looks like it's going to be really, really critical, but also really, really exciting for Chicago and for us here at the House Huddle. So before we go into some more Bears stuff, Rob, I think we should tell a little story here.
Okay. Towards the end of the second?
No, it's pretty. First quarter, I think.
Okay. Maybe the end of the first quarter?
Towards the end, yeah.
I get a text from Justin, and I didn't see it right away, but he asked me who the backup was. And in my mind, I thought he was joking because at one point Nathan Peterman was 3 for 5, and I thought you were kind of pointing out the fact he's throwing the ball well, right? There was that nice Bayless Jones catch, the one to Claypool that was one of his incompletions out of that 3 for 5. He was just out of bounds. It was a nice catch there. So I even tweeted out at one point, quarterback controversy coming in Chicago. I had no idea that they had already decided to switch from Nathan Peterman to Tim Boyle. So sarcastically, I thought your question was, I tweeted to you, or tweeted, oh my God. I texted back to you.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady was the backup.
Now, I'll tell you from my end of things, when I texted you that, I legitimately was wondering because I knew Peterman was starting. I hadn't cared enough to look into much about the game, and he actually took a pretty mean shot. See, I didn't know that it was a plan all along to play them both.
I didn't either.
He was rolling out on a third down and threw it and took a hit on the sideline, and it just looked like a pretty hard hit. So I kind of jokingly to my son said, "Who's the backup? This is already your number 3, legitimately, because Simeon's your number 2.
Yes.
This is your number 3. If he goes down, you're going to have one of your receivers or running back who played high school quarterback come in.
Yeah,
I think Komet was a quarterback.
Maybe. I don't know.
So anyway,
that was a baseball.
So when you said Tom Brady, I was like, what? I don't know what this guy's talking about. And then Tim Boyle actually came in the game. So I thought, Tim Boyle must have auto-corrected to Tom Brady.
Which I was like, let's play it off that way.
It's better for you that it came off that way. So, just Tom, I can see that. Yeah. Brady Boyle, yeah. It could autocorrect.
I would think I would be typing Tom Brady way more than Tim Boyle myself.
Absolutely. So that was fun. And everything just has rose tint to it now that the Bears are the number 1 pick.
Actually, more like orange and blue tint.
There you go.
Yes.
You get my drift. So, with all that cap space, you said it's about $120 million before cuts. There are some players who I think are definitely preparing to be cut. I would think Cody Whitehair is one. I definitely think Al-Quadin Muhammad may have that thought in his mind as well.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about that. But they're going to have lots of money. But some of that money should and will go to re-signing some players who are on expiring contracts now. We already saw ESB get a 1-year extension for probably basically the league minimum.
1.25.
Close to the minimum, right? And he wants to just be a part of what's going on here.
Which speaks volumes. Right? Yeah. And here's the thing. This year, he was expected to be your number 2, number 3 receiver. I'm fine with ESB being here because of what he brings to the table with his blocking for the run game, blocking in the screen game, like the bubble screens and stuff. Even we saw it with the one Cole Kmet touchdown this year, where he just kind of like sealed the outside. Boom, he's able to get in. That type of stuff is what you want to see from your wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5. So if he's your 4 or 5, I'm completely okay with it. If you're still planning on him being a 2 or a 3, well, 3, I guess, at this point, because you got Claypool and Mooney, that's not okay with me.
I mean, another episode we could do in the offseason is kind of evaluating Ryan Poles up to this point. A lot of people are really down already on the Claypool trade. I am not in that camp. I want to see when everything is different, when you have a much more talented roster, when you have an offseason with him and Fields working together. I want to see it then and evaluate.
There's going to be a lot of turnover, a lot of changes.
So I was just writing down, as I was barely paying attention to the game, I was just writing down the names of guys I knew were coming up on contracts. And some, to me, are easy cuts. Well, they're not even cuts. They're just not going to be re-signed.
Right.
But you still have to fill out a roster. That was the thing when we did our mock-off season. We're like, geez, they have to get this thing all the way up to 90.
Yep.
So there are going to be some guys sticking around, but I think a lot are going to be cut. Or I keep saying cut, just not in the future plans, which is good when you're 3 and 4.
And an important thing to remember for those who don't know, when you are filling out that roster and you are getting to 90, only your top 51 count against the cap. So there's still a lot of room to add players to 1-2 year very low priced contract and still get some of your bigger guys in there and still leave a ton of money to roll over into 2020. And if those guys, you bring in on a bigger contract, maybe they don't work out. Maybe if Michael Thomas is good, you give him a 1 year, $15 million.
Didn't he just re-sign a deal?
He restructured his contract, and everybody is saying that the restructure is potentially going to either lead to a trade or he's going to be a June 1st cut. And the salary cap, people are thinking it's going to be a June 1st cut.
Okay, there's guys I'd prefer over him just off the top of my head.
I'm just saying, but something in that scenario where you give a guy who's shown flashes of being elite, right? Dealing with some injuries, started off the year great again this year, but then had another injury. You give him the opportunity on a non-guaranteed type contract, but it's high, and then you see what happens, right? There's players out there in situations like this.
Well, they just have tons of resources. I think another key thing to keep in mind is free agency plays out before the draft. That's very important because when our dream free agent is Daron Payne. 1, he may not become available. 2, if he becomes available, he may not sign with the Bears. I don't see how that would happen because they got so much money and it's a perfect fit. And I would think he'd want the money and want the fit. But let's say you don't get him. Now that does make a DeForest Buckner in a trade with the number 4 pick a lot more appealing. So there's stuff we won't possibly know until time goes on, and I want all these things to happen tomorrow, but it's not going to be that way. So real quick, should we maybe talk about guys we just think have played their last whatever in the Bears? Throw out some names of guys who probably shouldn't come back?
Yeah. Cody Whitehair, you've said it enough.
Well, he's being cut. I'm talking about guys whose contracts are up.
Contracts are who shouldn't be back. Okay, yeah.
Well, how about this? There are 3 receivers whose contracts are up. Are any of them for sure out in your mind? N'Keal Harry, Byron Pringle, Dante Pettis.
All of them.
All of them are gone? So
I could see them bringing back Dante Pettis.
Interesting. I say Pringle is for sure gone.
Yeah.
And then I think either N'Keal Harry or Pettis at a reasonable price on a prove-it deal. But again, they're your 4, your 5, or your 6.
Right.
Perry's still young. He was a number one pick.
I wanted to see more of him. And the injury, and then he just didn't work. I was hopeful. I wouldn't mind him coming back.
Okay.
You got 90
so
players.
Maybe one of those 3. Maybe one. All right, at running back, you got David Montgomery, you got Darrington Evans, and I'm going to throw in a fullback, Kari Blasingame, and I guess technically Trevon Wesco I thought he was a tight end.
Yeah,
they have him as a fullback. So.
Kind of a flex.
So of those 4, and obviously Montgomery is his own conversation.
Blasingame's the one guy that I definitely would bring back.
He won't cost you much.
No. The stats aren't, great as a fullback, but he did his job just fine, in my opinion. Darrington Evans, I'm not bringing him back. And Trevon Wesco, I couldn't care less if he's on the team.
So I agree with you, except I thought Evans, I put a little question mark because I didn't like what I saw out of Ebner this season. Now he's younger, he's your draft pick, so I imagine if everything else is equal, you hold on to a draft pick who's going to be a little cheaper.
Ebner's not on your list because his contract's not expired.
Exactly.
But
it's an easy cut.
I don't think he's a lock.
No, he's an easy cut because, what was he, a 5th round pick? Yeah. But, so that's a guy, like there are certain guys here that if you did keep them, it's like you're either keeping them or replacing them with a free agent of the same exact, like replacement level free agent. These guys are like depth pieces. Montgomery's not a depth piece. So if you're bringing him back, it's to be your running back 1A, 1B with Herbert.
Yes.
But both of us have him 1A because he knows how to protect the quarterback in pass protection, which Herbert hasn't shown enough of to hand him the keys and say, you're the number 1 back. However, I don't know if you've changed your mind at all. We've talked about kind of where we both might be with Montgomery. Great fit in the system, great guy, great teammate, all those things. But to me, if you can upgrade and land I said Saquon Barkley, but maybe Josh Jacobs, or if you think you're getting a running back that's even at a higher level than Montgomery, especially in terms of big play potential, maybe you got to go after a guy like that.
That's the key, right? Like, I love David Montgomery. I love all that he brings to the table. I love his balance. I love the way he's able to break tackles. I love the grit that he has. I have no problem with them bringing him back and running it back again with Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. However, how do you say no to someone like a Saquon, right? Like, to at least see, right? Like, have a conversation, right? Josh Jacobs. I mean, not even a running back that I enjoy watching, but he had over 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing. Montgomery's contract is up, meaning he's a free agent. I don't know that the rest of the league values David Montgomery at a point where they're going to be like going after him as their prize, signing of the offseason. Some teams are going to want to look at him and see if he fits or that kind of thing. But Bears could kind of see what's out there and still come to a deal with Montgomery when it's all said and done.
Well, we've seen Ryan Poles be patient. He doesn't, and I know he didn't have the salary cap room. I know he was tearing things down. He might be different this year, but he's made it known that he's not ready to just jump at every player right off the gate, right? Right out of the gate. Horrible.
This year might be different with all that money, though.
It could be, and we're going to have to see. But in that case, do you let a couple of the top guys go down, and then you make a decision based off of, the third guy? I mean, Tony Pollard's going to be available. There's guys that are going to be available, and you let the first couple try and go, set the market, and then you get somebody for, $6 to $8 million.
Interesting. So at the running back position especially, I like that strategy. At some of the other positions that the Bears are going to have needs, I don't think that's the right strategy. So, for instance, we kind of talked about the receivers who just came off of contract, running backs. Let's go to O-line next, because the Bears have a lot of guys at O-line coming off, and honestly, I feel like cutting most of them. O-line has to be totally rebuilt. So, day one of free agency, I might be driving up. Actually, you get those negative days, right? You get the tampering days.
Yes.
You get your 2 or 3 days to tamper. They better be tampering the heck out of Orlando Brown if he's hitting free agency and driving a big old truckload of money up to his door.
Yes.
And even if you overpay, you're overpaying for a 26-year-old left tackle.
And you know that there's a connection there between him and Ryan Poles because Poles was in Kansas City when they got him.
That's true.
So,
well, we don't know. A lot still has to play out to even know who are going to be free agents because, like we're just doing now, and I'm not looking at restricted versus unrestricted. And
sure.
All that. I mean, that's a little more complicated. So, O-line, just going to throw some names out at you. Riley Reef, Schofield, Dakota Dozier. I don't even know if he played down. He's injured the whole year. Yeah. And Sam Mustipher. I'll throw in Patrick Scales, but he's a long snapper, not a true lineman. Yeah. We both think they should keep him.
Yes.
Why mess with something that's not
want that continuity? I wrote an article last week about players who are going to be pending free agents who should be back. Patrick Scales was one of the ones that I said should be back. They went from Patrick Manley to 1 year of not having a Patrick to Patrick Scales, and that's you're talking you're talking over 20 years of service between those two. So just keep it going.
Stay with the Patricks.
Yep.
So of that list we just named, a 4-line Dozier, I shouldn't have even named, but Riley Reef, Schofield, and Mustipher. You used to be so low on Mustipher, and now he might be the only one of that list.
He's the only one that I'm keeping. Plus, and I know you said you weren't paying attention to it, but he is a restricted free agent, not unrestricted. So he'll be back unless they tender him and then see if anybody's going to try to get him, and then we get a draft pick. I mean, we'll see. But the Dakota Dozier thing is funny because in the offseason at one point before he got hurt, he was a starting guard.
He was going to start.
Like, come on.
Yes. Okay, so there were some things, and again, and we'll talk about Justin Fields in a little bit just because we must, yes. But to act like you could fairly evaluate a guy like him in the first year of a brand new system with the talent deficiencies that are all over this roster is kind of strange.
Yeah.
And did he make mistakes? Yes. Will he make mistakes? Yes. But did he show growth and progress? Yes. So, but I just think nothing points that out more than the fact that Dakota Dozier was supposed to be a starting guard on your team on day one. I left out one name, Ryan Griffin. He's just a backup tight end. I mean, bring him back or don't, but you got to replace him somehow if you let him go. So that's the offense. Are we missing anyone? Does that make you sad? Does it make you think there's a lot of work to be done?
There's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
A lot.
On the defensive side of the ball, we'll do the same thing, kind of take it in units. So from the D-line, some names, Angelo Blackson, Armand Watts, Mike Pennell. That's all the D-line, I think. Keep Watts as a depth piece.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown a little bit of flash.
Pennell has too, but again, those are back of the end.
Yeah, I mean, you can't count on either of them. None of them can be starters.
Nope. Linebackers. Nicholas Morrow, Joe Thomas. I think that's all I have here for expiring deals. That's a whole unit that needs to be rebuilt. We said the only for sure player might be Jack Sanborn.
Yeah.
An undrafted free agent.
I'm probably going to bring both back if they're not getting a bigger payday somewhere else, and they could just be one of those guys that make our 90 and see if they're going to be here. Actually, I'm not going to count on either of them to be starting or even in a rotation.
I said yes to Morrow and no to Thomas. I didn't really have a good reason other than hopefully you'll be able to bring in someone better than Thomas. But Morrow actually surprised me when I looked up his stats. Like, I think he played in 16 of the 17 games and had over 100 tackles. I mean, I know that's due to the position he's playing, but that just means he was serviceable. And they're not going to be able to address every need they have this offseason, even with boatloads of money and the picks. So he's probably a guy they should keep on.
Yeah, I just think that there's, again, you keep them and you let it play out in the offseason.
So then looking at the defensive backfield, I think there's a guy on this list who I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is he the longest tenured Bear of any player?
With
DeAndre Houston Carson?
He's probably.
I mean, he's been on the team 7 years. I can't think of anyone longer.
2016.
Why here 6 years?
They might have been the same draft.
Well, then in my book, he's going to last longer because we both want him to cut white hair, and I think he's worthy of a re-signing.
Yeah, I think they were the same draft.
You got Dane Cruikshank, barely played.
Yeah.
He can go. And then Josh Blackwell. I like what he showed late in the year.
Yeah, I keep him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those are the guys that are coming off of contracts. Now, tons of names weren't mentioned of players they're still going to have signed.
Right.
But how many are starters? And how many are solid backups? And how many are just guys? We can kind of talk offense then defense. That's where we can talk a little bit about Justin Fields. I think he's a starter.
Yeah, so Justin Fields, again, we mentioned people are already saying draft Bryce Young, don't keep Justin Fields. Or I've even seen, this should be a rant too. Draft Bryce Young, move Justin Fields to running back / wide receiver. Okay? Let's stop for a second. Okay? Over Justin Fields' last 9 games, he had a 64% completion percentage. Okay? He had one game, it was the Lions game, that he was under 60%. He threw for almost 1,400 yards passing during that span. Okay? 871 yards rushing. That's a total of 2,244 yards. Okay? Everyone hung up on this 4,000-yard passing quarterback. But we've talked about it. If your quarterback is running for 80 yards a game, that's taking 80 yards away from what could be passing yards, right? As long as they're scoring, who cares if it's on the ground or through the air? That's all that matters. When they were competing against the Dolphins, and I got away from them, but the Cowboys and the Eagles, the top teams in the league, and putting up 25, 30 points in those games. No one was questioning the offense at that point. No one was saying, "Oh, well, he's throwing for 160 yards. That's not good enough." But he's throwing 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and gaining another 100 on the ground.
On our last episode, I said that I don't want to ever see him rushing for 1,000 yards again.
No.
He proved he can.
Yes.
That's cool. But I don't want him ever doing that again.
Yes.
So guess what? If next year he has a far superior offensive line to what he has this year,
Bingo.
if he's throwing to Devontae Adams, Darnell Mooney, Claypool,
yep.
I would hope he doesn't need to run as much. And his rushing yards go down and his passing yards go up.
And here's the thing. Maybe next year they get him all these things and it doesn't work out. I'm not a believer in that. I have so much faith in Justin Fields, but say if it doesn't work out and you trade back and you pick up an extra 2024 first, maybe 2.
You package those for the best quarterback of
exactly.
that year.
Then you go for the next quarterback. Get the kid out of USC.
Right. It's very simple to me.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense to take a quarterback this year. It just doesn't. So, by the way, 20 total touchdowns in that span, 6 total turnovers, fumbles, and interceptions for a 91.5 QB rating.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Those numbers projected out over a season, those numbers projected out over a career, put him as the best quarterback we've ever seen in Chicago.
He didn't have anything. So, again, if these things improve, I'd expect these numbers to improve.
Absolutely. And his knowledge of the system.
Yes.
His comfort with reading defenses. I mean, that's all a part of it. And I guess that's where I really want to say, I look and see that he has the tools to be an elite quarterback.
Yes.
I don't think he's there yet on reading defenses
No.
and on
his anticipatory throws.
Exactly.
We've talked about it.
Exactly.
We've talked about it. That fist up, by the way, live. I just saw the Lions are winning 20-16. 5 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Wow, that'd be great. So we talked about running back.
Yeah.
To me, it's either Montgomery is your starter or you brought in a big-time free agent. It's also a position they should address in the draft.
Should be all 3. They're going to have to address free agency. It might not be the big name. Could be Royce Freeman. I don't know.
I mean, you really got me at Tony Pollard. I'd love to see him get starter reps. Can he not handle starter reps, or he just hasn't had the chance playing behind?
The only problem is
he wouldn't have to.
Pollard and Herbert are very similar style, so you're not getting a switch up. But between the two of them, I mean, they might have led the league between the two of them in 60-yard runs.
Right.
Well,
Pollard, I feel, can catch out of the backfield too very well.
Now, can either of them block? No. I didn't watch enough Dallas games for that.
That's true. So, fullback, Blasingame, if you bring him back, fullback's kind of a lost position, but if you have one and like one, good.
Just keep one less tight end.
At receiver, Mooney and Claypool should be starter caliber receivers.
Yes.
But I would love if they're knocked down just slightly by somebody you can bring in via trade this offseason. I would love it. We talked about depth guys there. you're probably, they signed ESB. He's a depth guy. You could sign a N'Keal Harry or a Pettis or other free agent, but you're also going to have to address that position in the draft.
Yes.
Now, with trading back and getting the guy...
Had a back end of the season.
Jones.
Right. His back end of the season was not fantastic. We're not talking George Pickens-esque. But
he'll already be 27.
He flashed. I don't care.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Here's my thing. He can be 30. I don't care as long as he's putting up numbers. Then just go into the desert, go into the wind, and we'll bring somebody to replace him.
So, but that's the position they should address in the draft. Now, I put early-ish. Yeah. It depends on so many factors. It depends on so many factors. If they trade and blah, 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 and have a mid-round pick and go after one of the top receivers, I don't have a problem with that. No. But if you don't do that, it's probably something you should address in the second or in the third. Yeah. So, but I can definitely tell Foles is going to trade back. He's going to trade up. He's going to trade back. We have no clue what they're going to do in the draft. But that's a position that needs attention, both in maybe not free agency, either trade or draft. Tight end. I'm going to leave this for you to talk about because this guy, I think, proved that he's.
Cole Kmet is my boy.
Yeah.
He is my boy. I could go out and have beers with him, and I don't even like beer. The touchdown that he had today, like the way he fought, I've seen that his whole career. It struggled with him in the beginning because he wouldn't hold on to the football when he was fighting for extra yards.
That didn't happen once this season that I can recall.
No. And he had a couple drops here and there, but everybody has drops here and there. Like, when he was open in space, honestly, ever since Claypool came here, it opened up Cole Kmet's game. And I'm really hopeful that continues in 2023 and 2024.
Sure. What about as a blocker and all that? I mean,
he's definitely serviceable.
Yeah. And then you also bring in a second and a third tight end in certain stats.
No concerns with him at all about blocking.
So we kind of talk about the quote-unquote skill positions on offense. The entire offensive line is a question mark. Yeah, we used to say Tevin Jenkins was a lock. With his injuries, he's not a lock.
No.
So you have to build an entire offensive line.
Yes.
Scary.
Very scary.
Because I don't want them to use high draft capital on a guy. But you may need to.
Here's the thing. We saw the offensive line at times look fairly decent. I think it had a lot to do with scheming them to be decent. The way that they were using the outside zone run, rolling pockets out, stuff like that. And you kind of saw that get away from them a little bit at times too. Luke Getsy at one point looked like could be another hot name, and maybe some more head coaching interviews. I don't know if that's quite the case anymore, right? But we'll see. Hopefully he'll be back again this year, so there's next year some continuity. I don't see that there's anybody there. So
here's what.
But the defense, in all honesty, the defensive line is an awful position. That needs to be addressed, right?
Yes, complete rebuild.
But at least there's depth. I can't even look at this team and be like, the depth is great.
Well, hold on. See, that's what I was just about to say. Is now, and we're not going to do it now. We didn't rehearse. We do best case, worst case, though.
Yes.
Because the best case scenario for me for the offensive line is you get a guy like Orlando Brown to be your left tackle of the future.
Yes.
And that position is locked in. Now, Braxton Jones didn't have a horrible year. We talked about him.
He was bad.
We talked about him recently and how he's susceptible to bull rush. But my question is, can he play right tackle? Or in an offseason, can Leatherwood be that guy? If you go out and get an Orlando Brown, and if you can feel okay about Tevin Jenkins' health, and then listen to these names: Braxton Jones, Alex Leatherwood. You got Bourne, Jatari Carter, who you didn't play at all this year, but you invested in. You got Doug Kramer. Maybe you have other things going, but you lock down a couple key positions, and then it is about them playing together in continuity, which they lacked completely this year. But they also lack talent.
Yes.
So the offensive line is a huge project. That's why this build has to probably be a 2-year thing.
It could be that they're stuck with Mustard and Lucas Patrick for those reasons.
You're right. Let's go through the defense, but a little bit quicker. We talked about how the whole D-line has to be rebuilt.
From a starting standpoint.
Yes, because I would love Travis Gibson and Justin Jones and Dominique Robinson as your depth.
Love it.
And then you're bringing in, hopefully, a Jalen Carter, a Will Anderson, Miles Murphy. What's Breezy's name?
God, I can't think of it. guy out of Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson's. So we're going to get better at knowing we're going to really look at, that's now, because the season ended today, we start looking, so D-line, you need some top-end talent all year, no pass rush, and giving up so much on the run, which that falls on your linebackers and that falls on your safeties, but it starts with your line.
Yeah, if they're getting to the second level, it's hard to make tackles. Yeah. A lot harder than at the first level.
Because they gain full speed and they can cut.
Yeah.
So we need to really improve there. It was an embarrassment. Bears had 5 games, giving up over 200 yards rushing.
Last in sacks.
So that's
their last in pressures.
Absolutely. Linebacker. Jack Sanborn was a great surprise this year.
Yeah, I'm chalking him. I'm locking him in as a starter next year, whether it's middle, weak side. He didn't do very great on the weak side, but maybe he's your Sam.
That's both out of excitement for what he showed, and due to the fact that there's nothing on this roster. Yes. That's sad.
Yeah.
So that's got to be free agent and draft.
Yes. Yeah. I think you focus on the draft, maybe just one, and then maybe bring in a few to free agency.
Yeah. And DB might actually be the strength of this team from a unit standpoint, and specifically, definitely on the defense. Because you got Jalen Johnson, who's proven to be one of the best young corners in the league, I would say.
Yeah.
Might want to have to start having conversations about locking him up long term.
Right.
Eddie Jackson seems to have revived himself in this with this team. Yeah. He's now a veteran leader of a young team. Like what he can mean for this team next year.
I will throw out there, though, also a potential trade candidate, also a potential cut candidate. I personally wouldn't do it, but it wouldn't shock me if they did that.
Wouldn't shock me, but the way this year played out, it seemed like he's been stepping up as a leader, and that the team, the organization, I should say, is appreciative of that. And Jaquan Brisker. Kyler Gordon, he's kind of on the fringe. Because if you can do better,
really good games and some really rough games.
Yeah, if you can do better, do better. But if you can't, I'm okay with him as kind of a starter. And then there are some depth guys there. With Jalen Jones, showed some nice things late in the season. We talked about Blackwell, Houston Carson. So there's a lot that's got to be done, but I'm excited with the potential they have, and excited we're going to get to talk about it all.
It all starts with that number 1 pick. Whew. It does. I know the draft is after free agency, but your free agency moves are indicative of what you believe you can do come April.
So we're going to sign off here in a moment, but I just want to ask you this. The Bears hold the keys to it all right now.
Yes.
When do you imagine this trade happens? Is it on draft day, or can they work something out early? I mean, I think holding on, waiting till the very last minute runs up the price a bit.
I think so.
But everyone knows they're going to trade it,
right?
In a sense.
Right. I doubt it happens any earlier than the week before.
Right.
And then it'll be real interesting on how close they get.
Yeah.
I would hate to be on the clock and still trying to figure it out.
That's true. Because, I feel like this happened kind of recently. There was a trade a couple days before the draft or something. Interesting.
Yeah, well, the 49ers last year. Or not last year, 2021. When they moved up. That happened prior to the draft, actual draft day. So people knew they were moving up for a quarterback.
That's true.
And that was Trey Lance.
That's an interesting situation.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right. Well, great episode, Rob.
Honestly, it was a great season.
Yeah, great season. I mean, can't believe this is where it all ended up. I'm happy. I'm excited. And there's a ton we're going to get to talk about this offseason. So looking forward to it, man.
Same. Fair enough.
Right now.